You are originally from Nigeria.
Yes.
And then you were born here in the UK at London. I heard you mention of Spanish, so you learned Spanish.
Yeah, and it comes to writing your personal statement. What they really like is, for medical schools, is they really like for you to reflect on what you've seen and apply that to how you're going to be a good doctor. Because even now in medical school, when we have placement, we still have to reflect and write about what we're learning and basically turn that into a skill for the future.
We've got another special guest in the house today, and without wasting much time, I'll let her introduce herself to my viewers. You're welcome to the channel today, and can you introduce yourself to the viewers, please?
Hi, my name is Mary Taiwo, and I'm a medical student at the University of Exeter. I started off with primary school, then secondary school, and then sixth form, and then university. I'm from Nigeria originally, but I was born and raised in London, and yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, you are originally from Nigeria.
Yes.
And then you were born here in the UK at London. So can you tell me about your background here in the UK, your childhood, where you started schooling and all that?
Yeah, so I started primary school from like age 5 to age 11. It was called Stockwell Primary School. Yeah.
Okay. It's an opportunity for myself learning about the education system in the UK here from childhood. So you started from at the age of 5 from the primary school. Yeah, can you start telling me more about the things you used to learn, if you could remember, and how the education system at that age was structured for you?
Yeah, so in primary school from like year 1, so year 1 is from age 5 to age 6, I believe, or age 4 to age 5, something like that. And it's mainly just learning about like your alphabet, your left and right, kind of like the basic things. And it was mainly just like playtime, really. And then as you progress through the years, you do more, like they mainly do English and maths from like year 2 to year 3. And then from there, they might include science and then physical education. But at my school, we only did English, maths, and we did French as well. So depending on what kind of primary school you go to, some primary schools will include other subjects. But the main one is just English, maths, science, and then a language.
Wow, that's amazing. So right from primary school, then what next?
From primary school, after primary school, you sit your SATs, which is like an exam. It's not like a very big deal, but the score that you get can determine what secondary school you can go to.
Okay, can you repeat that aspect again into details?
Yeah, so at the end of primary school, so you're in year 6, you sit an exam called the SATs, and it includes kind of questions like maths, English, and like verbal reasoning, abstract reasoning, and it's kind of just to test your IQ, I think, mainly. And the score that you get in that exam determines what kind of secondary school you can go to. And then so at the end of primary school, you can have 5 options of the secondary school that you want to go to. But your exam that you got on the SAT, the score that you got in the SATs will determine what schools will take you. So the schools can decide whether or not they will accept you. And yeah.
Okay, amazing. So it's very clear now. So based on the score that you got for the SAT, which schools were available for you to probably go to from that stage?
I cannot remember what schools I put down, but yeah. I remember the school the secondary school I went to was Lara Trait.
Okay.
Lara Trait was an all-girls Catholic school in Balham. Yeah, it was a pretty good school. So yeah, I went to Lara Trait for my secondary school from age 11 to age 16.
Oh, okay, from age 11 to age 16.
Yes.
That's the secondary school. Can you tell me about your secondary school life at that age? What were the things that you were learning, and which one was your favorite, probably? Yeah,
so in secondary school, that's when you do your GCSEs. Most schools will have it that you can choose 10 GCSEs. So in my school, because it was Catholic school, you had to do RE. Then we had well, for me, I did triple science. So I did RE, biology, chemistry, maths, English literature, English language, sociology, Spanish, history, and I can't remember the last one.
Oh, okay.
But you mainly do 10 subjects. Some people will do more subjects. They'll do more languages, or they'll do Latin or classics or different kind of things. But from secondary school, you do from year 7, sorry, so from the beginning of secondary school, you do more than 10 subjects. But then in year 9 is when you choose the actual subject you're going to be sitting. So from year 7 to year 8, I was doing geography and music and drama alongside the other ones. And then in year 9, I was able to choose the 10 subjects I actually wanted to do for my GCSEs.
Oh, that's amazing. So I heard you mention of Spanish. So you learned Spanish as well.
Yeah.
So are you able to like speak it?
No. I stopped doing it after your GCSEs. But
okay.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, that means you have to choose the specific subject or courses that you want to do.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then which one among all these courses or subjects that you studied was your favorite, the top one?
My favorite was probably RA or history.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wow, history. Wow, that's amazing. So then, right from the secondary school, that's from the age 11 to age 16, what was next?
After secondary school?
Yeah.
After secondary school, so based on your GCSEs, similar with the SATs, based on your GCSEs will determine what kind of sixth form you can go to. I went to a private sixth form, but a state secondary school. So the difference between that is that a private school, you have to pay to go, and you also need higher grade requirements than in a state school. So by the grace, I did well in my GCSEs, so I was able to go to a private school. But based on the private school I went to, they allowed for an academic bursary, so you'd go for free based on first your GCSEs and then also your parents' income. So I was able to qualify to go for free at the private school. And at the private school, that's when you do your A-levels. Typically, most people would do 3 A-levels. I decided to do 4 because my school, they had an option where you could either do 4 A-levels or you do 3 A-levels and an EPQ. An EPQ is an extended project qualification, and it's basically where you write a long essay on a specific subject. And a lot of times when you're applying to go to universities, they might lower the grade requirement for you to go to the university if you did well on your EPQ. So doing an EPQ can be good depending on what university you want to go to. But I decided to do 4 A-levels, which was biology, chemistry, maths, and psychology. And that's because I wanted to do medicine. And so most people that are doing medicine, they'll do biology, chemistry, and maths. But I was really interested in psychology, so I decided to do psychology as well.
Wow, that's amazing. So along the line, at the secondary school to the A-levels part, did you have an idea or did you know that you really wanted to study medicine in future?
Yeah, so from like year 8, I was very adamant that I wanted to do medicine. But I always wanted to do medicine from like age 10. But when I was like in year 8, year 9, I was looking at what GCSEs I need to do to then do A-levels and then to go and do medicine afterwards. So yeah, it was definitely a plan from the beginning that I was going to do medicine.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. So right after the A-levels, how many years is the A-levels like?
A-levels 2 years, so from 16 to 18.
Oh, that's from 16 to 18.
Yeah.
2 years, okay. Right from there, what was the next step?
University.
University.
Yeah.
Okay, so then can you tell me about the university? So if that's correct, then you started university probably at the age of 19?
18.
18. Okay, can you tell me the process? How you applied, how many schools you applied, how the application process was, and how you finally got the one that you are?
Yeah, so at the beginning of year 13, so the last year of A-levels, that's when you start preparing your application. And for medicine, you kind of have to start preparing it from year 12 because the application season for medicine is from I think July to October. So most people, they start preparing properly the application from September to October. So it's a very short amount of time that you have to prepare. For medicine, you can only apply to 4 medical schools in the UK. In general, every person in the UK can apply to 5 universities. But for medicine, you can only apply to 4 medical schools, and then 1 has to be a non-medical option. And you apply through the application system, UCAS. I can't remember what it stands for, but UCAS is where everyone applies for their university in the UK. So for medicine specifically, you need to do an exam called the UCAT. The UCAT is kind of similar to the SAT. It was very much like they're testing your IQ, and depending on what school you get in the UCAT will determine what medical school you're eligible to go to. When I was doing my applications, there was also an exam called the BMAT, and the BMAT was for the schools like Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, but now it's just the UCAT. But for me, I did the UCAT and the BMAT, so I could apply to different schools. You have your grades, so you have your predicted grades for A levels. Then you have your UCAT. For me, I did the BMAT. Then you also have a personal statement. Now the personal statement is also different from how it was when I did it. But when I did it, you got to write, I think, 1,200 words or characters, basically saying why you wanted to do the course you want to do and why.
Did you say 1,200
characters?
Characters.
Words.
Characters. Okay.
Characters. Yeah. Yeah, 1,200 characters. It might be different now, but that's what it was at the time. Okay. And you basically write about why you want to do the degree you want to do, why you want to go to the specific school you want to go to, if you're like aiming for a specific school. The way you will structure it at the time is that you'll give your hook, which is drawing the reader in. So for me, my dad had malaria, so I talked about my dad's malaria at the beginning to hook the reader as to why I was first interested in medicine. And then you talk about your academics, what kind of things you did in A levels to further your knowledge of medicine. So I wrote about, because I did I did essay competitions. And work experience. So throughout the personal statement, I was linking the essay competitions with the work experience I did and putting it all together as to why I wanted them to do medicine. So most people, they'll spend a few months like really tailoring their personal statement, because it's kind of the biggest chunk of your application. And so there you have so once you have your personal statement done, your teachers can also give a reference for you. So your teachers, like different teachers, so I had 4 teachers, so I got 4 different references, and they'll talk about how you are in lessons, why they think you'll be a good suit for the subject that you're applying for, all these kind of things. So you definitely want to have a good relationship with your teachers so they can write a good reference for you. And I think that was it for the application, and then you go and send it off to all the different schools that you want to apply to, and then over the next few months the different schools will get back to you. For medicine specifically, they normally have an interview, so I did have 4 interviews after sending off my application, and so each interview was slightly different. So I applied for Cambridge, Exeter, Lancaster and UCL for medicine. So for Cambridge, they had 1 interview, and it was a panel interview. So I was sitting across, so it was me and then 2 other people in front of me asking me different questions, and they were asking me specifically about science and asking me to basically understand things that haven't been taught yet, but basically work it out through like deductive reasoning. And then for the other 3 medical schools, they were kind of similar in that there were MMI interviews, which is the other 3 medical schools, they have MMI interviews, which is basically different stations, and there could be like 10 people that are doing an interview, and there'll be 10 different stations, and so you'll walk around and everyone will end up doing the 10 stations in a rotation. So each station can be one about medical ethics, one could be about a drug calculation, one could be about why you wanted to do medicine, one could be about the news, like the different stations based on different things, and basically they're testing you to see whether or not you'd be a good medical student and whether or not you'd be a good doctor. So after the 4 interviews, you then finish your interviews at different times, and then each medical school will get back to you on their results and whether or not you got in. And so by the grace, I got all 4 offers, but each university has a different offer for you. So they have different grade requirements for you. So Cambridge was my first choice, obviously, and they had the highest grade requirement, which was A star, A star, A, and then they wanted me to pass psychology. So psychology was not considered a science to Cambridge. They wanted me in A star, A in either biology, chemistry, or maths. So they didn't care where it was. And then the other universities was A star, AA. The way that works is that you have to choose your firm and then your insurance. So your firm is the option that you first want to go to. So your firm is the top choice out of all the 5. And then your insurance is like your backup. And then the other 3, they give out the spaces to other people. So at the end, when you get all your offers in, you then make your firm and your insurance. And then out of that, then you only have 2 options. So my firm was Cambridge and then my insurance was UCL. And then after you finish your applications, you then just focus on your A-levels. So then you sit your A-levels, and then there's a time that you wait for your A-levels to be marked. And then on A-level results day, that's when you get your grades, and you see whether or not you got into the universities that you wanted to go to. So for me, unfortunately, I didn't make the grades for either my firm or insurance. So I got AAA and then an A star in psychology, but both the medical schools didn't care about the psychology. So I then ended up having to go into clearing. So clearing is when you basically, at the time, you would call the different universities and you would ask them, can I come to your university, basically? And you'll tell them your grades, you'll tell them your UCAT or your BMAT, and then they'll tell you whether or not you can apply again through clearing. And then you have to do another interview to then get into the medical school. Right now, the way it is that you do an application form, and then it's kind of the same thing, but it's an application form instead of you calling them. But at the time, on A-level results day, we were just calling different schools. And then by the grace, Exeter said that I could come in because I did get the grade requirements and I was already accepted by them, but I didn't choose them as my firm or insurance. So then I got into Exeter through clearing, and I am now here.
Wow. That's an amazing journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I ask, can you go back and then tell us into details the requirement for medicine in the UK?
Yeah, so the requirement for medicine is mainly right now the UCAT and then your A-levels. These are really the only hard requirements. So at the time when I was applying, it was the UCAT or the BMAT and then the A-levels. So the UCAT, most medical schools require the UCAT. The BMAT is, at the time, it was only a few medical schools that would accept the BMAT. So the schools that took the UCAT were mostly every school. The BMAT specifically was for like Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, and Leeds, I believe. So those are the only requirements that you need. In terms of your A-levels, different medical schools will accept different things. Generally, you need an A, at least an A in the sciences. You need at least an A. But of course, with extenuating circumstances, I even had extenuating circumstances, and sometimes they will lower the grade requirement for you. So those are like the main requirements. But in terms of the things that will strengthen your application, the main things are work experience. Work experience can come in all different shapes and forms. Work experience could be you volunteering at a homeless shelter or elderly home. For me, example, I volunteered at a nursery. I volunteered at an elderly home. I did hospital work experience in different wards. So I did like cardiology, stroke ward, pediatric ward. And then I also did surgery work experience. And then on top of that, if you're applying for universities like Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, they like you to do experience in research. So I also attended a lab experience, like a 5-day lab experience, to learn about how to use different lab equipment and to basically go into like biomedical sciences. So that can also strengthen your application. But it can be very hard to get work experience. So it's very important to be very proactive in trying to find as much work experience as you can. So if you're coming from a family that doesn't have any doctors or scientists, the best way is to find it online. So if you look on LinkedIn and you just ask different people for work experience, you'll end up finding something. Or you can even go and call different hospitals. That's what I did from the beginning. I called different hospitals and just asked them, and they gave me emails, and I sent emails upon emails upon emails. And sometimes you can send maybe 100 emails and you'll get one person, but that one work experience will be very valuable. So I definitely say it's very good to get work experience if you can get it. But there's also like online work experience that you can get. And you can learn a lot from different, like they'll have different simulations of hospitals, and you can still learn quite a bit from each one. And the main thing that you want to get from work experience is like the lessons that you learn about what it's like to be a doctor and reflecting from that. So when it comes to writing your personal statement, what they really like is for medical schools is they really like for you to reflect on what you've seen and apply that to how you're going to be a good doctor. Because even now in medical school, when we have placement, we still have to reflect and write about what we're learning and basically turn that into a skill for the future. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So basically, you've spoken about the requirement aspect into details, and I believe if you are watching us and you want to study medicine as well in the UK, you basically know the requirement now. So you are in your second year in medicine at the university now, isn't it? How is medicine at the university structured up to the second year that you were?
Yeah, so for the first year, it's structured in different, I don't want to say modules, but you call it blocks. In Exeter, we call it blocks. So they'll have, for example, we start off with musculoskeletal science. So that's like your basic anatomy of everything in your body, like the muscles, from the upper limb and then your lower limb. So your upper limb is like from your waist upwards, and then your lower limb is from your legs downwards. So every 3 weeks, we'll be covering a different thing. So every 3 weeks they'll do anatomy and then biomedical sciences separately. So at the same time as you're learning the anatomy of like your upper limb, you're learning the bioscience of like muscles and things. And so every 3 weeks it moves to a different topic. And then you'll have your mid-year exam and then your end-of-year exam based on everything that you've been learning up until then. Additionally, so you have your mid and your end of year. That's just testing your medical knowledge that you've been learning throughout the year. Secondly, we have an exam called the AMK, which is Applied Medical Knowledge Exam. The AMK is an exam that you take for real at the end of your medical degree. So everything on the AMK is what you should know at the end of the 5 years. In Exeter, I don't know if other medical schools do this, but in Exeter, they make you do the AMK from the first year to the last year. So by the end of your first year, theoretically, you should know 20% of what's on the exam because you've only done 1 year. So they'll have like a grade requirement that you should get on the AMK based on what knowledge you should know. So that kind of exam, you get the AMK twice a year, every year of your medical school. And then on top of that, so you have your normal medical knowledge and you have the AMK, and then you have your OSCEs. OSCEs is like your clinical exam. So throughout the year, you'll be having lessons where you learn about different clinical skills. So that's stuff like taking injections, taking blood out, doing different clinical exams to test people's reflexes, all the kind of clinical exams, you learn it. And then the OSCEs is where you get tested on it. So the OSCEs is kind of, you have stations. So you have 4 stations and you won't know what's going to be on each station. So they'll have different actors that will come in and like act out different clinical scenarios. So for example, you could do a history taking. So they'll have an actor that has maybe like a myocardial infarction, like a heart attack, and they're recovering, and then you have to ask them questions based on their history. And then they'll mark you based on how well you did. So they'll have different criteria for the marking. So they'll have your communication, if you built a rapport with the patient, if you washed your hands, so hygiene, and then how well you were able to take that medical history. So that's your OSCEs. And then the last exam that you have is an SSU. An SSU is basically an essay on a different medical topic. And so you have that twice each year. So they'll have one that's based on healthcare and one that's based on biomedical sciences. So the one that's based on healthcare will actually be a PowerPoint presentation where you then present it on PowerPoint, and then the examiner will mark it based on how well your communication was, how well your research was, how well it flowed, if you covered every point. And then in terms of the biomedical one, that's an essay. So you write a long essay and you have to give your references at the end. And they basically mark you based on your structure, your punctuation, and how well researched it was, and if it makes sense. And the person that's marking your work is actually an expert in whatever topic you're doing it in. So for example, I did one in heart failure and COPD, and the person marking it was an expert in heart failure and COPD. And so they're like very well equipped to mark it, and if it doesn't make sense to them, then it probably just doesn't make sense in general. So all of those kind of exams are basically testing you so you can become the best doctor you can be. So the medical knowledge exams are so that you can actually know what you're doing. The OSCEs are so that you can be able to perform well as a doctor. And the SSUs are so that you can become a well-read doctor. Because they're basically training us to be the best kind of doctors we can be.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for giving us this insight. It's about your year 1 and year 2, right? So that's amazing. I want to ask you this question, and it's actually from a follower. William, he wants to ask you he wants to study medicine at the moment. He's contemplating on it, and then one key question that he has been asking is, as a medical student yourself, based on the workload on medical student, how are you able to combine that with your normal daily activities and then with having fun as well? How are you able to combine all of that, family life, work, everything? How are you able to combine it?
Yeah, I would definitely say it comes from being intentional with your planning. So like today I'm going to go into the library to revise. And it's really just about making sure that you make time to revise and making time to catch up on content. Because with medicine, it's very easy to get behind. Like it's very easy to like get lost and not know where everyone else is and kind of be lost in the weeds. But it's very important to also not panic, because the thing with medicine is that everyone's kind of behind. No one is really on top of everything because there's just so much. And as soon as you feel like you're on top of things, there's something else that is thrown at you. So even though we just had our MK this Wednesday, we now have our OSCEs coming up in the next 2 weeks. So it's like every time you think you've finished, there's something else that you need to prepare for. So
it's unfortunate.
Yeah. So like it's not really about thinking that you want to be on top of things. It's about just managing it and not panicking, because they'll burn themselves out if you try and do everything at once.
Okay. If you hadn't had the chance to study medicine, would you have option for a different program?
Yeah, if I couldn't have done medicine, I think with the mindset I have now, I probably would have done finance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I probably would have done finance.
So if you were to go back and make the decisions all over again, would you have still chosen the medicine or option for another thing?
I really love medicine.
Okay.
So I think I would probably be a nurse. If I couldn't be a doctor, I'd probably be a nurse, or I would do finance on the side or something.
Okay.
Because even with medical school, one thing I didn't mention is that with medical school, with some schools, you can do an intercalated degree. An intercalated degree is where after your third year of medical school, you can apply to do a different degree that's completely different from medicine for a whole year. And that 1 year that you did that degree will be like 3 years of doing the degree.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so after my third year, I'm going to apply to do finance. So then you'll leave with 2 degrees. And that's only with medicine. And I believe it's just because it's such a long degree and it's vocational.
Yeah.
And some people might change their minds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. This is an amazing insight that you've given us at the moment. As we are getting to the end of the interview, do you have any advice for the audience, especially as people who are aspiring to read medicine, people who have done some applications and probably haven't got any interview or something? Also, do you know anything about scholarships for like medical students or something? Are you personally on scholarship, and do you know if anybody wants to apply for scholarship? Because I know that the school fees is not a joke, isn't it? So do you know about scholarship and everything, so that if somebody wants to apply, then he's educated about all this? Yeah,
so in terms of the advice, I would first say that just don't panic. Like, I would just say, like, for me, all I did was trust in God, and that was it. Like, I would say the panicking is probably the worst thing you can do for yourself. I always find that with, like, medicine, like, people will find the field that they're supposed to be in. So a lot of people, like, they might not get into medicine, they'll end up either going abroad to do medicine, or they'll end up doing something else, and they always find that whatever it is they did was what was best for them. So it's definitely best when it comes to rejection to not place your identity in that rejection. Because like me, I was rejected from Cambridge, but at the same time, I'm not, my identity isn't that I'm a Cambridge reject. Like, I'm happy being at Exeter, and I think you'll end up being wherever you're supposed to be. And then in terms of like bursaries and scholarships, medicine is the same price in the UK as any other degree. So it's not like more expensive to do medicine if you're a home student. But for me, I have a bursary just because of how much my parents make. So depending on how much your parents make, the university you'll go to will have different options for you. And then on top of that, if you're about to go to medical school but you're in like the summer period, it's very good to look at different scholarships that you can get. So for example, I got a scholarship based on the area that I grew up in Lambeth, which is in London. And so different counties, different boroughs will have different bursaries available to you. So the bursary I got was based on like how much my parents make and then where I grew up, and that was it. And then they give me money every year during my medical school. So different, and there aren't many bursaries, to be fair, available based on like medical school, but mainly based on where you're from. So I didn't get a bursary based on me being a medical student. It was just because I grew up in a certain area. So I think those are kind of like the bursaries that are best to look for. And there's a website called Black Bulletin that have lots of bursaries that they collect all the bursaries that you can get, and you basically filter out what you're available for, and then it'll give you the different ones that you're available for. I would say if you're an international student, obviously medical school will be very expensive, but there are loads of scholarships that are available for people from your country specifically, and then if you're like from a Commonwealth country, there are different bursaries you can get. Like there are full scholarships that you can get if you're from a Commonwealth country. So I would definitely say look into it, because it'll definitely do you well when you come to the UK.
Wow, thank you so much. As we end the interview, I would personally want to thank you for honoring the invitation and coming to give us this insight. I would say a big thank you to you.
No worries.
And I would also say, I think you are a TikToker, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a YouTuber as well?
No, just TikTok, yeah.
TikTok. So I'll put your channel name in the description
Yeah, thank
below.
you.
Yeah. And also, I'm going to interview a finance student, something like that, yeah. Would you want to leave any random question to him?
How do you get internships?
How do they get internships?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or how would they recommend to get an internship if you don't do finance as a degree?
Okay. So I'm going to ask him that question. Can you repeat the question again so that I get it
Yeah.
right?
How do you get internships if you're not doing finance, or actually no. How do you get a finance internship when you're doing a completely unrelated degree?
Okay. How do you get a finance internships when you are doing a completely unrelated degree? Yeah, so I'm going to ask Jude. Jude, if you're watching us, I'm going to ask you this question tomorrow, so you better get prepared for it. Thank you so much for honoring the invitation.
No
I really
worries.
appreciate it. Yeah. I think that's the end of the interview.
Cool.